Bolt your windows. Lock your doors. Check your closets. Look under your bed. And then prepare yourself. For it's another episode of Dark Night of the Podcast. Whoa!
Emmanuel, wonderful counselor, Lord of life, Lord of all. He is the Prince of Peace, mighty God, Holy One. Emmanuel, Emmanuel. Name that song, Troy. Do you know it?
Does it have to do with a Catholic church? Because I have no clue what it is.
It's Amy Grant. Emmanuel.
Oh my God! How did I love Amy Grant.
I know you love Amy Grant.
Oh my God! Here's the thing. That fucking album that has baby, ba, 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 ba. You know what I'm talking about, right? Everyone knows that.
Yeah.
Baby,
oh my God.
Baby, or every heartbeat belongs to you. When I was a little, that shaped my little gay youth. I wore that CD out.
Let me tell you, Amy Grant. Do you understand how prominent Amy Grant was in my Catholic upbringing? I cannot even begin to describe how important Amy Grant was.
When she did that album, Heart in Motion, she was shunned. She was shunned because they were like, "Oh my God, how are you leaving your religious roots and singing about wanting a man?"
Oh my God! Well, let me tell you right now, if my good friend Teresa Padone, the pop culture Persephone, a good friend of ours who's been on the show before, if you get her talking about Amy Grant, she's filled me in. I assure you, I've watched every fucking music video. But Amy Grant for me takes me back to when I was in Catholic grade school. Every fucking winter, we put on a choir concert, and every fucking time we were forced to sing the song Breath of Heaven by Amy Grant. Do you remember that one? Breath of heaven, hold me together, be forever near me, breath of heaven. Every fucking year. I've recited it as a poem. I've had it performed live around me as a spiritual dance routine. It just, for some reason, Amy Grant, very, very prominent, but my Catholic upbringing was a major aspect of what defines who I am today. It is something that, whether love it or hate it, how I feel about it, it's something that haunts me. I'll always have Catholic guilt. I'll always feel a certain way about certain things because that's just how I was raised and that was embedded in me and I can't really shake it. And so there are still certain aspects of Catholicism, though I now consider myself atheist. There are certain elements of Catholicism that still really, really resonate with me and impact me. And one thing I've always loved is just religious horror. I think that the bridge between these two very drastically different ideas, to bring them together and create something that falls between the two, it can be really successful or it can, be horribly not successful. And, sometimes people take big swings and they don't always hit. And so I think one of the things with this movie that we're going to cover today is it's something that impacted me in a certain way as a youth. Where this film really, really stuck with me. And I haven't watched it in a long time. And so I wanted to cover this movie today because I just, coming at it with fresh eyes as a fully formed adult who will be 39 in a month, I wanted to see if it hit the same way. And if any of those old feelings, those old emotions that I possess regarding my Catholic upbringing, and I mean, I was in it. I was fucking in it. I was very into it. Deep into my 20s, I was really practicing, and I believed this with a lot of faith. I was curious if the film would just still hit in the same way as it did when I was younger, and what a journey it was for me revisiting this film with a different mindset. But you yourself, Troy, I believe you had not ever seen this movie before. Is that right?
No. I think I've seen like very small portions of it. I did not watching it. I did not remember anything. Like I've never seen this film in its entirety. So it was definitely a journey for me as well. I will say I'd rather be listening to Amy Grant. Stop for a minute, baby. I'm so glad you're mine. It
Wow.
brings much more joy to my heart than this film.
Wow. Yeah, I think that while this film is hyper stylized and very much it's a product of the time, I feel that it falls prey to a lot of the stylistic choices that are made here just do not age well. They don't hold up. The way this is edited, the way that this film is paced, and a lot of the overlays and just the visual, the styling in general feels very much preserved in the late 90s. It's a certain look, it's a certain feel, though it does have moments worth acknowledging. But yeah, I found it really just wild to me that this film that felt extremely fresh and intense and impactful for me at one point because of certain things that I believed and I feared. Now it did sit kind of hollow for me. There are moments I think that are visually stimulating. There are themes that are explored that I am quite a fan of. Truly, I wish they went deeper. But overall, yeah, this film just is really a subject of the times and something that I just think did not maybe necessarily age well.
Yeah, I think there's the Shakespeare quote, the very famous Shakespeare quote from Macbeth, I think sums up my feelings on this film completely. And it's the quote that ends with the phrase full of sound and fury, signifying nothing. I really strongly believe that sums up this film for me. I have not watched much religious horror. I mean, I've seen The Exorcist, I've seen The Omen, I've seen the classics, but the thing about those films is they have something very explicitly deep that they're saying about religion. This film doesn't necessarily even, I think, know what it wants to say. I think the screenwriter thought, oh, Stigmata, that's kind of a cool concept. Let's make a movie about it. But at the end, it doesn't, this movie has no message. It says nothing really. And some of the choices that are made, I want to say by actors, and I don't know if it's the actor's choice or the director's choice, are very odd. And it just kept me, I will be honest with you, kept me out of the film because I could never buy that this was really happening. And I guess I'm heavily focusing on Patricia Arquette's character of Frankie Page. And you know what? I love Patricia Arquette. She is a brilliant actress. She has given some amazing performances. She's an Oscar-winning actress, phenomenal in Boyhood, Emmy-winning actress, magnificent in The Act. I mean, she's stellar. I find the biggest problem, I'm just going to put it out there, that I have with this film is I don't believe anything is truly, I don't believe this is happening to this character. We know it is, but I'm saying the character's reaction. Like, I've never seen somebody so just nonchalant about having wounds appear on their body and being whipped out of nowhere on a train. And she's just like, oh, okay, that's kind of fun. It just kept me out of the film.
I mean, get me in Patricia Arquette's wardrobe. I'll say that. 1999, 2000 never hit this hard. I mean, this movie, like, when I say it's a product of the times, it looks of the era. And I love the stylistic choices in some aspects, but in other ways, I think there are themes here that are explored that just, it would have paid off to go so much harder. There's an undercurrent here of challenging the Catholic Church. There is an undercurrent here of calling the church out for being manipulative. And what is the end game here? The church is a business. Like, let's be clear, any church is a business, and when it comes down to it, that is, I think, the end game of this film. It's just, it's not explored enough to make it really hit home and make it have a punch. And so that's disappointing. But I think this is a film that it's very different from anything we've covered recently. And I think it's a good conversation piece because, like I said, I grew up Catholic, Troy did not. And coming from two different angles now, I think as two gay men talking about this movie, I think it's it's gonna I think there's gonna be a lot of resentment, to be honest, as I watch this film. Like it just makes me pissed off about the church. And I do kind of like that this film has a bit of that tone to it. So I don't feel like this film would have been warmly welcomed or received by the Catholic Church when it was released, because it is kind of spitting in the face of the church. So I'm excited to talk about this with you a bit, as someone who just does not believe in those things. But yeah, I mean, let's jump in. Anything you want to say before we dive in?
We're talking about 1999's Stigmata, um, directed by Rufus Wainwright, and a film that I do remember, like when the film came out. I do remember some of the promotional trailers and whatnot for the film, but it really, let's be honest, this film came and went, and it was critically pretty much lambasted, and so revisiting it now 20-25 years later, yeah, what you say, yes, there is a overarching theme that the film is trying to explore, and it very much is what you said. The Catholic Church is a business. They do what they need to do to survive, and they'll do what they need to do to protect that business, right? That is kind of the whole premise of what happens in the film. So the film opens like any good religious horror film. You have to have an inciting incident. And the inciting incident in this film is a bleeding Virgin Mary statue. And seeing this sequence immediately threw me back to a couple of old school episodes of Unsolved Mysteries. Remember those episodes where you get bleeding statues and shit? I'm like, oh, we're right in the middle of an Unsolved Mysteries
Oh
episode.
my goodness! So I'm sure there's no solution to
Or
how this came to be.
A piece of toast that looks like Jesus,
Oh, I love them. Yeah,
yeah.
yeah, and people are so susceptible to it. But I mean, I do, I do find the visual here rather stunning. That that white statue with the bright red blood streaming from its eyes, and I think I will say that, like, I like a film with a fast setup. Like, if we're going to talk about a movie that at least starts on a good note, I would say this film starts pretty strong. Like, it gives us like an exotic location, strong visuals, a clear setup. It gets in, it gets done, and I mean, that's what you get with Stigmata. So, I mean, we're in Brazil, and it gives it to us real quick about this whole village having basically become fixated with the statue, which started bleeding the day that one of the priests that operated within this church passed away, and his corpse is still there. It's a very creepy visual, and so they're all basically coming from all around to pray to this statue, which I think it makes for a kind of exciting opening sequence.
Yeah, Father Almeida has recently passed, and so the news of this bleeding statue, bleeding Virgin Mary, has reached a priest, Father Andrew Kiernan, played by Gabriel Byrne, who was in town to actually investigate another sort of religious phenomena until he heard about this statue. So he travels to this small town, small village, Belo Quinto, Brazil, and the residents all, oh, good lord, there's a whole street full of them, and these are, I mean, just random. This small village has a lot of just disabled people, blind people, people missing limbs, conjoined twins being wheeled in. I'm already bold setup, but you get into this church and you have this, yes, this very striking, beautiful white Virgin Mary statue that is just dripping blood. You can see the blood like coming out of it, and the townsfolk are in there. They're worshiping it. Father Kiernan comes in. He examines it, and all of a sudden, the wind blows. Some doves fly in, and it gets real spooky for a moment. All the candles blow out, but then a second later, another wind comes through, and all the candles relight themselves. And so Father Kieran automatically realizes he thinks this has to be the real thing. So he starts to, like I said, take pictures, take samples of the blood. He says he's going to crate the statue up, but the other little priest is like, no, Father Almeida would never approve of that. And while this is all going on and all this chaos, this little fucking bastard goes to the coffin or the casket that the body is in and steals this dead man's rosary off of his neck. What a horrible
little
child.
fucking piece of shit. Little
Horrible.
piece of shit. And that woman, no better is the woman, the mother of Frankie, we come to find, who without hesitation purchases this rosary from this child. And the man is like, don't buy that. That's bad. And she's like, oh, I like that. And like, she just like waddles away. And that's it. Like, that's the story. You're into it. There's some striking visuals. I think the visual of the doves flying and the feathers falling like snow over top the congregation, I think, is a really beautiful visual. And I like how quickly that Andrew realizes, okay, this is definitely off. Like, it's some really kind of just spooky, interesting little pops to really start this on a stylistic note. I wish it maintained the energy established in this opening scene throughout the rest of the film. The rest of the film is a lot more chaotic. The editing is a lot more aggressive, but I think this is quite a cinematic opening. And one thing I find interesting is, let's talk about Andrew, Father Andrew. He was up for a Razzie for this. Just, I do want to acknowledge that Gabriel Byrne was nominated for a Razzie for this performance, and I don't understand why. Personally, I think this film is very flawed, but I don't think he is one of the flaws. I think he is warm and troubled and brings a lot of those emotions through to the character. I think that some of the flaws that do exist are more within the script than within his performance. So I don't really think that critique is so warranted. I'm curious to hear your thoughts on him.
I actually thought he was pretty flat. And his, again, I just have a really hard time like buying these people as really truly going through this. Everybody in the film, I will say, not just Patricia Arquette, there is such a disconnect with the actors and the material that they're supposed to be portraying, and even him. I think this opening scene when he sees this statue is about the most expressive you ever see him. Otherwise, at the film, I found him fairly flat. To be honest with you, I will say it doesn't surprise me that he got a Razzie nomination. I will say that just because, like, you think of, like, I'm thinking, and I don't want to compare this film to like The Exorcist, but if you look at a film like The Exorcist, you have a couple of priest characters, the Jason Miller character, who is almost kind of a parallel, I think, to Father Kiernan. He has a whole backstory with his mother. He has a lot of baggage that he's carrying that he expresses. He got it on the flip side. He got an Oscar nomination. Yeah. I just felt Gabriel Byrne was very flat, and like his reactions to what's happening are never never feel believable. And again, I think that's across the board. Everybody in this film, doctors, her best friend Donna, who just disappears. None of these people are reacting the way I think real people would react if this was happening to them.
It feels at times like an episode of MTV's Undressed, but with a like somewhat horror, religious, supernatural subplot that comes into play, and then it like goes back to being just an episode of Undressed, and like, which is fine. Like, I mean, there are things I like about this movie, but yeah, I feel like it can't decide, like, tonally, the tone it's trying to hit, it can't totally decide on what it wants to be. It never goes all in as a horror movie, aside from these like really sporadic montages that we get at times, which are effective to a certain extent. It doesn't go all in on it, and same with the characters. Emotionally, it doesn't go all in. You want the oh, Dimmy, why you do this to me, Dimmy? Why? Like the mother from The Exorcist, where he keeps hearing her in agony calling for him, and he's being haunted by her. You want, a good hero needs to have, they call it an eye patch, something defining about them, something that you think, okay, oh, that dude's missing an eye. I'm going to remember what's the story about that. I'm going to cling to that. That's what defines that character. I think one of the biggest issues with Andrew is, like, aside from his priest wardrobe at times, like, you see the priest collar occasionally and he eventually loses that. He is so basic down to his solid black ensemble and nothing more. He's nothing more to define him. There's nothing he's struggling with or working through. He's a scientist, so he has certain beliefs. That's interesting, to challenge his religious beliefs to a certain extent, and thus the church kind of keeps him in check, but they don't go far enough with it. And I really just wish he had what you're saying. He had an eye patch. He had something to make him stand out, something to define him, because he does feel flat. I'll give you that. I don't think the performance is awful, but I just think there's a flatness because he never is allowed to go all in a film that feels like it should emotionally hit a lot harder.
Yeah, well, let's be real. The Razzies never nominate the worst performances. He's not bad. He's fine. He's just flat. And this was a big budget, film that was supposed to be a blockbuster, and it bombed. So I can see why the Razzies latched onto it to give it some sort of nomination. So the opening scene is my favorite part of the film. It's the best part of the film. It's visually stunning. It immediately captured my attention. Unfortunately, we do this hard cut into the opening credits montage, which, Roger, could not be more opposite of what I just saw. Like, we are getting there's a 90s alt rock version of a song about the Virgin Mary that's playing, and it's just flashy music video editing, flashy clips of who we find out is Frankie, Patricia Arquette, doing various activities as she's walking the streets of New York. She's cutting hair in her barbershop with her friends, the one Donna Nia Long, who, I mean, did we even need this character? She is so throwaway. I feel so bad for her because she was.
Talk about Donna. Talk about Jen. What about Portia de Rossi?
Portia de Rossi. She has like two pieces of dialogue. I mean, you're going to have Portia de Rossi and Nia Long in your film and literally not use them. And then she goes out to the club, and we get this elaborate, just pulse pounding music as the club's going, and there's even religious imagery and symbolism going on in the club. She ultimately takes that hot guy home to fuck, who is supposed to be her boyfriend, but we never see him again either.
There has to have been a good amount of film here that hit the cutting room floor, because there are characters who just poof, they're gone. There are subplots that just are not followed through, and it just, overall, there's a complete lack of closure for pretty much every what should be important element of this film, and mostly the characters. And so there's this opening sequence. I feel like I'm in a fucking Ray of Light music video. I am a zephyr in the sky at night. I wonder. It is like sporadic and it's flashy. The font is extremely like of that era. And you're getting all these religious overlays, and it's just like, it's badass. It's so just rad. No, it just... It's honestly kind of hard to watch now. It is so sporadic, and they're just trying very hard to be cool. And I get it. They're trying to show that this girl, she is a party girl. She is a club girl. She's living that life. She's fucking dudes, and they're really just trying to hit hard. And unfortunately, what you said about the opening scene, I was drawn in by that opening scene. And that hard left turn you mentioned really does not hit well. I wanted something different, and it had been so long, I just forgot that it went so deep into this very just stylistic, over-edited, hyper-stylized approach that it takes. And it's not always omnipresent, but most of the time it is. And I just don't think it always does the film well. I prefer the moments of calm in this movie where they actually let the camera drift for a little bit and not berate you with these hyper stylized overlays and light flashes. But this opening credit is the worst of it. It really is. It's kind of overwhelming, and that, like, that whole subplot with the boyfriend, like, he's approached like what seems to be a major factor, and then he never comes back into play. He's never concerned about her. What the fuck?
He never checks on her after finding out what's been happening to her. He never shows up. There's a whole subplot where she thinks she's pregnant by the guy. I mean, they have a relationship because after a night of fucking, she wakes up the next morning, and the phone is ringing, and it is her mother, and we find out that this guy is her boyfriend because when she answers the phone and she finds out it's her mother, her call waiting rings, so she has to switch over, and it's the boyfriend. And she tells him, I hate when you leave without saying goodbye. I like to wake up next to you. He's like, oh, I'm sorry, babe. I had to run. She's like, well, I got to go. My mom's on the other line. So it is somebody that she's been seeing. It is so weird that he's never seen again. But we do find out the mother has sent her a package because the mother is a world traveler. She's in Rio de Janeiro. She's like, did you get my package? Frankie says yes. She hasn't opened it yet. So she opens it while she's on the phone. And lo and behold, the rosary is in the package. She was the woman that bought the necklace from the little boy in the opening scene. It's Frankie's mother's. So now Frankie has this rosary that apparently is the catalyst for everything that happens to her, which, okay.
I mean, I'll roll with it. I do still feel at this point in the story there's reason to be invested. There's some really beautiful shots. There's that wonderful shot of the camera drifting from the box on the floor over the wall and down onto her bed where she's sleeping, and it feels just very dreamy and eerie and implies that there's a presence there. So I feel like a lot of the strong choices are made earlier in the film, and then as the further you get in, they're fewer and fewer and farther between. But yeah, I mean, they're quick to get the rosary in the hands of this girl, and she just happens to be the one that gets it. I don't know why the mom thought this was the right thing to send to this girl who is clearly not religious. But this is the thing that I guess sets everything into motion. It's there. It's always there. It doesn't go much further than that. It's just this thing's possessed. She's got it, and it's now in her house or in her apartment or loft, I guess.
And we know it's trouble because it causes her to puke. And then when she shows up to meet her friend Donna, the lovely Nia Long, for morning coffee, she tells Donna that she doesn't want coffee, she doesn't want anything to eat because she threw up. And then they both ponder, well, could you be pregnant? Well, I guess so. I'm a week late. Well, you're always late. Well, I don't know. What if this time it's real and I'm carrying a human inside me? So they're on this pregnancy scare. We then cut to some hookers, Roger, that are trying to the Italian hookers that are trying to accost poor Father Kiernan as he's just walking to Vatican City.
Oh, and he flashes his priest collar to them, and they just are like, "Oh, Vatican discount!" I'm like, all right, okay. I'm still invested at this point. Yeah, and so now we do have you cannot have a religious horror without having a priest subplot of some sort. It just, or none, I guess, but it just required, and so that comes into play here. As someone who grew up Catholic, I feel a lot of the dialogue between these men is setting the groundwork, just being like, oh, this is how the church operates, and this is the important terminology you need to know. And it's very just exposition based. All of these scenes, they're pretty. Vatican is beautiful. The locations they film in are very pretty, but it's not like anything exciting is happening when you get to the priests. It's not anything action based with these guys. It's a bunch of old dudes walking around being shitty to each other, which is one thing I do like, is they are pretty quick to be like, listen, all of these fucking priests, this cardinal is a fucking piece of shit too. Him, what's his name? Horseman or
Houseman, Cardinal
Houseman.
Yeah.
Oh, he's a piece of shit.
Well, yeah, he is. And basically Father Kiernan's there to show him the pictures of the statue and tells him that the tears that the statue was crying were warm tears. He tested them and they were human. So he doesn't think this is fake. Cardinal Houseman dismisses him. And so Father Kiernan says, well, are you going to let me go so I can do more tests on the statue? And he's like, no, I have a different assignment for you. If we want the statue, we'll get it and we'll have it brought here for tests. And so Kiernan leaves and Houseman laments to his other priest friend that sometimes his problem is he can't decide if he wants to be a scientist or a priest, setting the backstory that he was a scientist before he became a priest, which means that this guy's reactions to things, I think, should be a lot more like, holy shit, what's going on? But again, Gabriel Byrne just decides to play the character very, very, very flat throughout the film. Frankie's dropped at her apartment by Donna, mentions the pregnancy again, and we'll get you a pregnancy test tomorrow. She goes in, gets in this beautiful, luxurious bathtub, Roger, that's just surrounded by candles. I couldn't even imagine how long it took her to light all these candles.
The volume of candles is absurd in this.
Yes.
It's like, let's just acknowledge there's too many fucking candles.
It's like Carrie's living room when she comes home from prom. I'm like, who is lighting that many candles? But it looks relaxing. She's relaxing. In her mind, she's replaying the conversation about how she could possibly be pregnant. And she dips her head underwater. And all of a sudden, this dove flies into her room and scares her. I don't know how it got in there, but she's just watching it in wonder. And it flies out. And we get the first, I guess, a Stigmata scene where she is violently yanked under the bathtub into the water. And I mean, it's the fast editing. It's cuts of images of Jesus's hands being hammered to the cross. And at the same time, the wounds are appearing in her wrists. And blood is squirting all over the bathtub. She's being yanked under the water. It's very frantic, as all of these scenes end up being very frantic. The editing is you're just getting bombarded with cuts of imagery of, like I said, nails being pounded, crown of thorns being put on. It's an assault on the senses when it's all said and done. It looks cool. There are really cool elements to it. It's pretty violent and shocking. I think it's handled pretty well.
Yeah, I think that, I mean, obviously the main draw of this film is you're going to see someone experience the stigmata, but what does that look like? I mean, what how are you going to actually physically depict that? And I don't want to say and make it exciting. If someone's looking at their wrist and the holes just fucking appear, that's horrifying, but it's just there and all of a sudden they're bleeding, and I don't know. So they're really trying to amp it up. They're really trying to make the stigmata a thing, and they're pretty successful, I'll say. It's the kind of the same thing every time, but every time she's in a different location, this bitch is going to experience a stigmata, and that's the main draw. So for this bit, there are things I like about this. First of all, there's that sensual nude profile shot of Patty just laying in that tub with breasts cusping just like the underboob of the breast before the line of the water cuts off. Like, it's quite sexual, but still very beautiful. I'll say that. And then all of a sudden that stigmata hits, and you got like blood hitting the water, and you see all those visuals of holes and wrists. And yeah, when you say assault on the senses, like, that is the right way to describe this. But it does work. And I'll say, that's really going to be what you get here. If you're coming at this movie and you're like, I want to see a horror movie, you're going to get several stigmatas. and that's about it. So they do that fine. But when you say you're talking about her reaction, there's one thing that she says here in this scene with Ann Cusack, by the way, my favorite Cusack, the doctor. She mentions after all is said and done, she's rushed to the hospital, and she is getting brought in and laid down. She's like flatlining, and the doctors, everyone's flipping out. Donna's there. Donna's flipping out, and then she like sits up and she screams. And it's this really cool fucking moment where she like comes to, she screams, then she passes out. It's a code blue, and then all of a sudden she wakes up like she's just like back to it, like nothing happened. And at that moment moving forward, she does mention a line of dialogue where she says, is it weird that like I'm not feeling it? Like, it doesn't hurt. And that's something that like is not consistent. I mean, if it's something where she did not feel the pain over the course of this, like there's times where she's wincing in agony, and there's other times where she's just not aware of it. And so you have this really cool wrist moment coming up when she comes to, where it seems very clear that she's not feeling anything, but it just is not a consistent thing for this character. So it does make for her reactions to feel at times very lackluster or just not, it doesn't make sense. It's not how a human would react. If I had all of a sudden had holes in my wrist, Troy, I would look at you and I would start just screaming inaudibly, screaming, I have holes in my wrist. I have holes in my wrist. Somebody help me. And she's just so unfazed by it, you know?
She's completely unfazed by it. She wants to go home, even. And the doctor is very much insinuating that she thinks it was a suicide attempt. And Frankie clearly says, I did not do this to myself. I love myself. Ask anybody. I love being me. But she also doesn't seem concerned about finding out like what happened to her. Like she doesn't know what happened to her. Like she's saying she didn't do it herself. She was, so why aren't you concerned about finding out, did someone attack you that you're not remembering? Like, did someone come into your, she does not seem to want to know anything at all. And in fact, she does go home, and Donna stays with her that night. She gets home. You see like the bathtub, the bathroom in disarray, blood all over. They lay in the bed, and Donna mentions the strong smell of flowers, which is revisited a little bit. So
This landlord must be livid because this place is wrecked. I mean, first of all, there's blood all over the floor. The tub is full, but there's clearly a leak in this loft apartment that really needs to be addressed. There's water dripping all across
everywhere.
the ceiling. It's everywhere. And it's, if you don't like, if you're not a fan of water torture, if that's irritating for you, you should not watch this movie. The audio of dripping water is omnipresent. You hear it all the fucking time. And at first it's like, oh, the sound design here is really dramatic. I kind of like it. By the time you're like 20 minutes in, you're like, I'm losing my fucking mind. If I ever hear another water drip, I'm going to put a gun in my mouth. And so that's really one of the issues here I have with the audio design. But yeah, it seems completely unaddressed that there's always water dripping all throughout this apartment. And the flower thing, that's something that is interesting, but yeah, there's a lot of basic kind of little concepts that are brought up and thrown out there because I think they think religious people are going to connect with that, but it's never explained. Like truthfully, it's not explained why stigmata is the method of choice through the which this poor young woman is the vessel to communicate the overall end information she's relaying. I suppose the basically she's there to serve a purpose, but to make her go through stigmata like just really is it's kind of irrelevant, isn't it?
Yeah. Well, yeah. And that's I mean the whole thing is just irrelevant, honestly. When you get right down to it, nothing is really accomplished by the end of this film. You get more like you get these really intense scenes, and then it cuts back to the priests. So now Kiernan has gone to visit an older priest, Brother Domenico, to ask him what he knows about Bel Quinto. And basically the brother has gone across the world investigating various miracles, and he has been assigned the task of translating different gospels because so many people have had experiences with Jesus that they wrote down. There's so many different stories about him, so many different gospels, so many different people had experiences. However, many of these gospels, only a third of them exist because they were kind of dealt out to like Franciscans. Each got a third of it. So only a few select people are aware of all of the gospels, which begins to sort of start the seed of what the point, quote unquote, of the film is.
Yeah, it's an interesting concept. I mean, and this is where I think my religious upbringing still can maintain some attention through this, because I think for the average viewer, and correct me if I'm wrong, I think like once they really start to get into talking about gospels and all the gospels and translating them and all the different languages and Aramaic and like I think that it can probably lose one's attention fairly quickly. For me, I still find interest in that, and so I wasn't completely lost on it. But I was like, kind of by the end of it, I was like, God damn it! Like, just get to the fucking point already. I understand that they're translating gospels. It just it's something that kind of consistently carries throughout the whole film, but it kind of weighs it down a little bit. I don't know. Did this keep your interest? This element of the story? Did you find this intriguing? How do you feel about this being someone who's not religious?
At first, it was intriguing because, while I'm not religious, I definitely have knowledge of religion. I've taken biblical literature classes, and I've always pondered religion and the idea of if there truly was a God that existed, then wouldn't it just be like everyone would know it? Like it just would be common knowledge. There wouldn't be, hundreds of other religions across the world because there would be just one truth. So I do like the idea of them kind of diving into that by saying, well, so many people had different experiences with Jesus that the stories are going to be different. That's why sometimes there's conflicting stories and contradictions. It's because different people had different experiences. So I did find that really interesting. But yeah, by the end, I'm like, oh my God, shut up. Like, it does get a little repetitive. A lot of this film gets repetitive. It's a lot of rinse and repeat, as we'll find out here coming up in the next scene, where now Frankie is at the salon cutting hair. And we got Portia de Rossi just sitting there. She doesn't get a line here, but she's there. She's cutting her hair with her client, and she hears a noise. Something catches her attention. So she looks out the window and she sees a woman standing across the busy street that looks like her. At first, I was like, "Wait, is that like a doppelganger?" But then you get a closer view, and it's not her, but it looks like her. And she's just transfixed by this woman. And this woman's holding a baby wrapped in a red blanket. And ultimately, the woman, like, she sees that the woman's going to drop the baby in the middle of the busy New York street. And that's exactly what she does. So Frankie darts her ass out there, runs into the middle of traffic, almost gets hit. People are honking her, "Get out of the way, bitch, get out of the way." And ultimately, she gets across the street. There's no baby. Donna has to come out and rescue her and help her back to the salon and take her home. It's a really cool sequence, I guess. I wanted to see the baby get run over. It does not. But again, what does it have to do with anything except the fact that she maybe thinks she's pregnant? It doesn't have anything to do with Stigmata. But hey,
the idea is approached, and this is true to Stigmata. The idea is approached that one of the quote unquote symptoms, I suppose, is being prone to like demonic infestation, if you will. Like you become a target, you become a focus for what is demonic visions, and it's testing your strength through this experience. And so to me, this is one of those demonic manifestations taking form for her. And you're right, playing into her fears that if she is pregnant, what if that's the case? It's a cool setup. It's a cool sequence. She's slow motion walking all throughout Pittsburgh. This is set in Pittsburgh, by the way. It's very rainy. It's very dreary, very sad to look at. And so, by the time you get to this whole beat here with the baby, it's a really cool concept, and there are visual aspects I like the blue jacket, the red fabric that the baby is wrapped in. The dropping of the baby is quite shocking. You see this chubby fucking little baby, this little butterball ham looking baby, and they just dropping it. Patty Arquette just dropping babies in the street, and it's cool. And then you see a shot of like the baby on the ground in a car, like going over top it, not running it over, but like it's under the car. But my problem is because of this hyper stylization that you're getting throughout a lot of these moments, it works at times for the Stigmata itself, but for this moment, it's cool, but wow, what if they just played this as a normal sequence and you saw it like happen without all these weird cuts and her screaming in silence as she's hitting on the window and just cutting all over the place. Just show me that fucking baby dropping in the street and a car going over top of it, and screw all of these crazy edits and these crazy cuts and just give it to me straight. Give me the baby getting dropped in the street. That's all I need to see. So I do feel like, in a way, watching this now, when I'm talking about it being a product of the times and it's that being kind of its Achilles heel, it's a cool moment and it's memorable, but I feel like it could have been cooler and more memorable if they just didn't go so over the top with it.
Yeah, I agree. They do it with every scene that has to do with horror. They go way over the top, not only with the fast, frenzied edits, but also the music. The music drowns out the action and becomes distracting. This would have been much more effective as just a more quiet, straightforward moment. Just seeing a woman drop her baby on the street, on a busy street, and walk away, that would have been fucking terrifying. But the way they build it up and it's just cutting with different visions, it's just okay. But Donna gets her and they get on the subway, and they happen to be in a subway car with a priest and two nuns. And when Frankie sees the priest, she becomes rude. She's like, hey, you. He's like, oh, yeah, yes, what can I do for you? Are you Father Andrew Kiernan? And he's, no, I'm not, but how can I help you? She's like, you can't, I'm fucked. And then she like rips the rosary off of one of these nuns and throws it down the train car. And then this causes like the train to start to shake violently. People fall on the floor. They go through that dark tunnel, so it's very flashy and stroby. And she grabs onto the straps to hoist herself up, and all of a sudden, she starts getting whipped by an invisible whip in the back. And people on the car can see her blouse ripping open and the wounds appearing on her back. The priest is seeing it. Everyone's seeing it. Donna's seeing it. And she is literally strung up like she's hung on a cross, or, she's tied to a cross being whipped. And you're hearing the whoosh, and she's screaming, and the poses she's taking are very Jesus-like. And it's just, again, it's fast, it's frenzied, it's strobe lights as the car's going through the tunnel. But when it's all said and done, they take her to the hospital, they stitch her up, but she doesn't seem fazed by it at all. Either does Donna. Nobody seems fazed by just seeing this woman be whipped by an invisible whip.
I think if anybody does give a reaction, it's Donna, and for her to not be a through story here is a disappointment, because she is, at least up to a certain point, she's a voice of concern. She is the one kind of taking care of Frankie in her moments of need, but she doesn't have anyone else. The mom never comes back into play. Nobody fucking cares about Frankie. Her boyfriend is no longer a character the rest of the film. All she's got is Donna. Poor fucking Donna, her coworker, stuck with this wild broad who's running out into traffic multiple times a day, just running out into oncoming traffic chasing babies. Patricia Arquette has a problem with running into traffic in this movie, by the way. Like, someone needs to put her on one of those where they put the rope on the baby and the baby goes off running. It's like a tether, and they bounce back. Put her on a baby leash, because she's running into traffic like it's no big deal, causing accidents. Never addressed. The cops never come looking for her. I'm sure if this became a regular thing, people would be like, it's that crazy girl with the stigmata that's running into traffic. And poor Donna's stuck finding her, hunting her down, and making sure she's okay.
Yeah, I mean, I guess with Donna, you don't have any scenes of her showing any real, like, what the fuck is going on? We need to find out what's going on with you. Yeah, I mean, she reacts when she sees the wounds appearing. She's like, somebody get help. But then at the hospital later, she's very conversational with her. Neither of them seemed overly concerned about what just happened. I mean, if that was me, I'd be, what the fuck? We need to get to the bottom of this. You are not being alone. We are taking care of business. But no, it's all like fun and games. And in fact, they go out to a fucking club later.
What if at Houston Horror, Troy? What if at Houston Horror, in the middle of Houston Horror, I start to experience stigmata?
Oh, Lord.
Will you take care of me better than Donna?
I would try. We already had to rush you to the hospital a couple of years ago.
Yeah, that's true. So I have all the faith in the world, guys. If you're going to be at Houston Or, let's just start pinning it now. By the way, coming up in August, who knows? Maybe a fallen Catholic, can experience Patty Arquette style Stigmata at the Houston Horror. But yeah, I hear what you're saying on the characters here. Is nobody. Nothing holds weight to it. This whole thing feels very low stakes, and I really think it's because of the way these characters are reacting. You're saying they're going out to the club, and she shows up there, and Donna calls her on it, but then they're just like, okay, well, she's here. I'd be like, girl, your wrist just busted open. There's no fucking way I'm going to be here drinking with you and partying with you. It doesn't feel like anybody really cares that much about her,
Yeah. Yeah. Well, the one doctor does tell her, A, that she's not pregnant, but B, that he thinks that she's of sound mind, and he even offers a diagnosis. He tells her this could be epilepsy. It would explain a lot of your symptoms. Roger, I don't know a lot about epilepsy, but do epileptics get random lashes appearing on their backs?
Epilepsy, okay. I guess, I think that with epilepsy, your body, like how you move and contort, can injure you. So I think that's something, but I don't think any of this feels at all like epilepsy. And I don't think Patricia Arquette thinks it feels like epilepsy either. I also don't think that doctor thinks it feels like epilepsy, but I think he's like, well, I'm just going to tell you this so you'll leave, so you'll go away. Because, yeah, at a certain point, they just stopped taking her to the hospital. Like, she's 3-4 stigmatas deep into this movie, and they just start doing self-care at that point because the doctors and the hospital in general are not bringing anything to the table to take care of Patricia Arquette in this film.
She would have been committed. If this was real, like if this shit was really, she'd be committed. They're not going to, there's video, Roger, of her on the train with being invisibly whipped. There's video. People took videos of it.
I don't know. Security camera.
It was security camera. Yes, it was the security camera. So they have proof that this woman was literally ripped open on the subway, and nobody is concerned. They just let her go home. The one priest though that was on the train with her, he's been waiting in the waiting room the entire time. They literally let this woman go home after tending to her back wounds and stitching them up. They let her go, and he's out there, and he approaches and he asks her, have you ever heard of the stigmata? Because he saw this happen, and they're like, no, we got to get her home. And so they just leave.
One of the issues here is, as you move through the story, it's the Wizard of Oz, where Dorothy keeps meeting characters along the way that become pivotal parts of her story, only they're all priests and they all become interchangeable. So, she meets this priest and he sees her get whipped on the fucking train. And then it's a cool sequence, and he's very present, so he clearly sees it. But once it gets to a certain point, this priest no longer necessary. And then you meet another priest. It's Father Delmonico, and he's there to provide information on translations, but that's his purpose, and that's all it is. And so it starts to kind of blur together. There's all these different characters that you're meeting, but none of them are that important. So I don't know. I can't even remember this guy. What's this guy's name? Do you even fucking remember his name? He's father one of 7 of them.
Yeah, I have it written down somewhere. Dawson or something. I don't know. But yeah, he's pretty much of no significance. Back at Vatican City, Kiernan is told that they found his next assignment. And it ultimately is basically to go to Pittsburgh and investigate this train incident, because now the Vatican has the surveillance video from the train, and it clearly shows her being whipped. So he is going to investigate this. Okay.
Let's talk about the fucking sub little priest bitch. That's like the cuck for the cardinal. Like Dario, that bitchy little one, who's clearly a homosexual and definitely is suckling on the balls of the cardinal for sure. These two guys are such just bitchy. They're like bitchy gay men. the cardinal and his little assistant, and they feel almost. I mean, they feel like stereotypes. Really, is what it is though. These two priests, like I do like that they're painting that the higher ups within the structure are not to be trusted. I do appreciate that. But you don't get a ton of time with them. And when you do, they're like mustache twirling villains almost. It feels like everything they do is really shitty and shady. It feels very two dimensional.
Yeah, they're definitely, well, at least Cardinal Houseman is definitely painted as being a villain almost, particularly by the end of the film. He definitely goes into full villain mode. But the next day, Frankie's at work. She keeps going to work. She just got whipped on a train, but she's heading to work. And even they're whispering, like, why is she at work? And her first client just wants to wait for Donna. So people are now catching on that there may be something wrong with her. They're whispering about her. So she comes out of the back. She said, would you all quit whispering like you're at a goddamn church? Just as Father Kiernan walks in. And she, of course, greets him. He just, wants a quick trim. She gets him in his seat and they start making small talk. And it leads to her asking him what she should call him. And you can tell, like, even the other girls are thinking that she's flirting with him. She definitely right away is very, I don't want to say attractive, but there's something about him that she is attracted to. And ultimately, when he tells her his name is Andrew Kiernan, she immediately recognizes that name because remember, she asked the priest last night if his name was Andrew Kiernan. So she knows the name already, and she just looks at him and she's like, you know what? I have been expecting you, I think.
Her knowing his name, I understand that it's something she's probably hearing as part of her visions. But that really, unless I missed it, that was not explored prior to her having this confrontation with the priest, right? It doesn't, it's not clear exactly how she knows Andrew's name. She just knows she's meant to connect with him. Um, but this whole bit of them coming together and forming like this kind of instantly there's this quote unquote sexual chemistry. I wouldn't necessarily say there's a lot of chemistry, but there's this attraction between the two of them. Something's very off putting about it. I mean, clearly, he's a priest, so like, there's that alone doesn't necessarily jive with me. But like, I mean, how much older is he than her? Well, in this, I'm guessing that he's at least maybe 10 years her senior. Does that sound right?
Well, probably older because it's there. It's stated, and she's a rough-looking 23-year-old if she is. But she says her age later in the film. She says she's 23, so he has to be at least twice her age, if not more.
Yeah, that's definitely something that I feel like, all things considered here. I don't know. It just feels very swarmy. I feel like he doesn't love being a priest. I think that is something that would have also, like, it would have helped if that was explored further. But with her, she's just very vulnerable because she's experiencing stigmata. And it just kind of feels kind of weird how he just kind of starts kind of having a fling with her. I don't know. I could have done without the romantic subplot. I would have rather you just had this dude come in and be like, I'm here to do a job and I want to take care of you because you're a good human, and that's my job, as a priest, is to be there to care about people, not because I have this weird underlying like romantic subplot that needs to get shoehorned into the story but doesn't really, nor can it really go anywhere because he's a priest. It feels like a very incomplete concept at the end of the day when this film wraps up. I do not think this film benefits from having a romantic subplot at all.
No, and I almost think by the end of the movie that it even sort of looks he's gonna leave the priesthood to pursue her. But we will get to that. Right now, we gotta cut to their coffee conversation because from the salon they go for coffee, and he begins to record her and asks where she goes to church. She says she doesn't. He's like, oh, well, how religious are you? Do you believe in God? She's like, I don't even believe in God. And he tells her, well, that's all I need to know because Stigmatas are highly, highly religious people. And she says, "Oh, so there's no exceptions?" He says, "No, not at all." She's like, "Well, why do they get stigmata?" And he basically gives her this whole history that, Christ received 5 wounds. The last one was the sword that killed him, but we know of the nails through the wrists. We know of his feet. We know of the crown of thorns. We know the whipping and then the sword. He said, like, deeply religious people are the only ones in history to experience these, and the church regards it as a gift from God. And that these people, because of their deep religion, they're often haunted by such intense spiritual pain. The yearning to live a godly life consumes them so much that it causes these wounds to manifest in their bodies. And she's like, "Well, look at my wounds. What do you think?" And he looks at the wrist wounds. He's like, "It doesn't matter what I think, because it's not a case for the church, because you're an atheist." And then she takes a piece of paper and shows him this paper, and it's a foreign language. She's like, "This was on my coffee table. I don't know where it came from. I don't know what it says." And it's an Italian, and it says, "Split a piece of wood and I'm there. Lift a stone and you will find me." She's like, "What the fuck does that mean? It's a warning. It's this is gonna kill me." And she's like, storms out of the coffee shop.
Thank God for that butterball waitress who comes in to
Oh, I love
make
her.
sure the priest is okay.
Yeah, she does. Bless her heart. But a lot is revealed there. A lot of backstory about Stigmata, who gets it, why they get it, which I guess is important, but ultimately not really, because she doesn't fit any of the criteria.
There's a part of this film, like, as much as this film feels like it's kind of poo-pooing on the Catholic Church, there is another part that feels like a little bit holier than thou. And I think it's in the way that they handle her, an atheist, and the way they talk about her as an atheist. And of course, she's an atheist. She's living hard. She's doing drugs. She's having promiscuous sex. She's an atheist. She doesn't give a fuck about anybody but herself. And then through these experiences, I don't want to say that I feel that Patricia Arquette comes out of this film a Catholic, but it feels like she comes out of it somewhat of a changed person. So I do feel at certain points it feels like it's kind of like being kind of shitty towards atheists, but that just may be my personal feelings reading into it now, having been a Catholic and now identifying as an atheist. I can be very much reading into that subtext a little bit more than the average. But you get this moment. It's this really random outburst, and she goes back. She's reading about fucking epilepsy. She's reading about epilepsy. She's reading about fucking stigmata. I mean, she's getting herself educated across the board, no matter what's coming her way.
Well, what's coming her way is a night out at the club. I guess reading about epilepsy caused her to need a drink, which, hey, sister, I'm right there with you. So she goes out to the club. Donna's there. They basically have a little chat about, "What are you doing here?" And she's like, I need to come out. You know what I realized? You know what's more terrifying than not believing in God? Believing in him. Because he must hate me so much because he's doing this to me. And Donna's like, "No, girl, you're losing it. Just get up and have a drink." And so she gets up to join the party, and all of a sudden, we get the third wound, which is the crown of thorns being placed on her head. And while, I mean, just the booming, busy club that's a cliche of every fucking club you've seen in a movie, people dancing, having the time of their lives. Patricia Arquette's head is literally bleeding as the crown of thorns is being placed on it, as we see with intercuts of imagery of the crown of thorns being placed on Jesus's head. And she falls a couple times. She's getting up. It is a very striking image to see the blood pouring down her head in the middle of everyone dancing. It is a really cool. It's probably my favorite of the whole stigmata wound moments. This is probably my favorite.
I'm tracking this outfit on yourprops.com. This I could bid on this outfit, this fucking sexy little like sheer, I think like mesh dress that she's wearing with this orange Adidas jacket. I love this fucking look. Again, get me in Frankie's wardrobe. I may have issues with this film, but I do not have issues with that fucking wardrobe. And so yeah, I agree. I think you know the chaos of that very heightened club energy really balances well with the visual style here that they're approaching. It cuts well. They play into the energy of the club with these intercuts, and again, it's the same thing. You're seeing the visuals of the crown of thorns coming down on her head. I love the visual of the wounds opening and the blood running down her face. So yeah, I think this is one of the stronger moments in the film. And then poor fucking Donna's like, damn it. God damn it. I can't have one night without this broad having stigmata. And so she's like, call an ambulance. And fucking Frankie just takes out running into the fucking street. Blood running down her face. It's raining because it's never not raining in Pittsburgh, apparently. And she's causing car accidents. I mean, I think people probably got killed in this accident that she caused. Oh my God, bad choices.
Yeah, this is like the fourth time she's run into traffic, causing cars to swerve and run into each other. But she gets to her apartment and she sees that Kiernan is there. And when she sees him, she takes off into an alley and he runs and follows her. And now this is when the film takes a turn from being a movie about the stigmata, which I think is effective enough, into becoming a possession film, which I kind of wasn't prepared for. And I'll be honest with you, I kind of did not need. I really was like, wait, I thought this movie, like, I found the idea of a movie focusing on a person, despite how lackadaisical their reaction is, getting all these stigmata wounds. And now she's at the third one, and there's only two more before she has all five of them, which does that mean she's going to die? I thought that was really interesting, but now it takes a turn and just becomes another demonic possession ripoff. Because honestly, these demonic possession scenes do nothing that we haven't seen 30 times before. He's in the back alley. The wind starts blowing, windows start breaking, and he goes farther into the alley, and she's on the hood of a car carving something, words into it with a broken bottle. And when she looks up, she screams at him now in a male voice, foreign language, and she's just it's your very stereotypical demonic voice that you'll hear in every fucking movie. Donna comes running in, and then she just like comes to. She looks, she drops the glass, and they get her and take her to Father Downey's church. I don't know how you feel about the possession aspect that this film plays with in a couple of scenes.
And part of me appreciates that they don't go full Catholic here and make it an actual stigmata. Like, I think if you're going to do that, you're going to come out, I mean, really just drawing a certain crowd, and that crowd is people that love Jesus. And and hey, more power to you if you do. But I think that they want to leave an element of obscurity to make this feel more mainstream. And so part of me doesn't hate the intentionality behind her motivation for stigmata, because there is a message there. Like there is an active voice that's trying to communicate an important piece of information through that fucking rosary. She's the one that happens to get it, and so she uses the vessel. And the message that is being communicated in of itself, what it's trying to say, is interesting to me. But I don't think that goes hand in hand with Patricia Arquette experiencing stigmata. I mean, like, she could have done a lot of things. She could have just been regular old possessed. She could have, I don't know, started fucking spider walking around the room and vomiting green slime. And they happen to take out those token traits of what makes a possession movie a possession movie. They removed the kind of standard tropes that you come to expect, and they replace them with the different stages of experiencing stigmata. And so it does kind of feel like a cop out. I just wish that they would have leaned heavier into the story they're trying to tell here overall, and maybe just not made it about stigmata, or like you're saying, really stuck to it and made it about a religious experience, because that isn't exactly what this ends up being. This ends up being that she's used as a tool for a greater purpose.
She's the messenger, as we find out, though he is extremely violent when he does possess her in trying to get his message across. But yeah, so apparently Andrew recorded her speaking in this foreign language, and he calls Father Domenico to ask him to translate it, and he plays the recording, and he's like, Father, I just need your opinion. Is this a real language? Is it gibberish? And he tells him it is not gibberish at all. This is not gibberish. And we cut immediately to Frankie, who is now in church, even though she's a atheist. This experience, like you mentioned, Roger, is pushing her more towards the church because she's inside the church there to meet Andrew. And while she's in the church, she's looking up at the statue of Jesus on the cross, and she notices that the nails are through his hands, not his wrists. So when he approaches her, she tells him that you must have made a mistake because Jesus's hands were nailed, not his wrists. And he tells her basically that that's inaccurate, that just because of the logistics of it, most crucifixes have put the nails through the hands just for the visuals, but we all know that he would not have been able to be held up just by his hands, so the nails were done through the wrists.
That's true. And I like that little detail there. Like, I do feel in certain aspects of the story, they're telling, like, they did some of their homework. Um, and the fact is, yeah, the hand, I mean, under the weight of it, the bones are so thin, it would just tear right through it. So the wrist is the way to go if you're crucifying someone. I find this moment necessary to show that they understand the material a little bit. And it does now kind of start to lead into this kind of calm, quiet moment with the two of them where they do start to develop a bit of a relationship. And I think that, like, that is important. Even though I don't like the romantic subplot, I do appreciate seeing the two of them become closer, because when it does get to a certain point here, there's nobody else sticking around for Frankie. It's kind of sad. And we've said this a few times, even her friend Donna really kind of becomes an afterthought here in a little bit. And he's the only one in her corner. So I think you need to see somewhat of some form of a relationship develop. And I don't hate these moments of them together. I just, like I said, I just wish it didn't go a romantic route. But I like this moment for what it is.
It definitely goes a romantic route that gets a little uncomfortable at times. He does tell her that the language that she was speaking is a form of Aramaic that hasn't been used in 1900 years. So she's like, what the fuck? And the next morning, I mean, he's definitely invested in her, because the next morning he goes to her apartment and he finds her writing in this weird language all over her wall. The wall is covered with writing. And he starts to take photos of it. And he asks, who are you? And she turns around and she is clearly possessed now. Clearly, the skin, the pale skin, the demonic eyes, cuts on the forehead. And in a deep male voice says, the messenger is not important. And he continues to take pics until she starts to shamble down in a really creepy way with those big old fucking oversized Crocs, shambles down and lays into her bed.
As like a standalone moment, I really like this scene. You know, with what you're saying about this becoming another possession film, I do feel it starts to meander a little bit. But I like what happens when, you know, he comes in and she's scribing on the walls. Prior to that, you've got that weird moment of her sitting on top of the skyscraper. Like, it almost looks like she's contemplating suicide for a moment. You know, like it just it again, tonally, I'm not sure what they're trying to establish with that, or if they just wanted to do it because it looks cool. But regardless, you come up in this moment. She's fucking possessed. It doesn't look bad. The wrinkles around her skin and just the way she's holding herself. At least Patricia Arquette's getting to do something very different here, and it looks like she's just physically decrepit. She's elderly, so it's clear that whatever's possessing her is apparently a senior citizen and old and speaks in a foreign language, which would make sense. That tracks. But this is not consistent. When this presence, this entity, however you want to reference it, makes itself present at other points, it operates differently. It moves differently. Its voice changes. So I almost feels like there's different things going on here. What this is right now, I don't hate the scene for what it is. I think it's creepy. I think the way she carries herself is creepy. She lays down, that fucking ceiling's leaking all over her. Apparently, that leaking ceiling is what it takes to snap her out of the trance, because all of a sudden she's not possessed. Her skin's not all withered. Don't know how that happened, but that's all it took.
Yeah, some water dripping on her, and then she comes to and she's like sobbing. She feels like her heart's breaking, and she wants to know why she's so sad. And then she mentions it smells like flowers, and then she sees the writing on the wall. She's like, "Who wrote that?" And he's there comforting her. Back at the Vatican, Cardinal Houseman and his little crony have got wind of things are getting out of control, because in the newspaper is now publishing articles about Frankie and explicitly using the word stigmata. And so they want him to conclude his investigation immediately. Cardinal Houseman's like, you call Kieran and tell him to conclude his investigation immediately, and he needs to have a report to me in a week.
I have an issue with this development, because if people are talking about stigmata, the rumor has it she's got stigmata. It's all over the news. You sure would know it at all. Like, I mean, first of all, there's no repercussions for her causing that massive 5-car pileup a little bit ago. Like, I hope now that they know she's got stigmata, I'm sure they know she's running into traffic as well. So there's no cops coming around asking about that. She's got multiple wounds, but we just don't see her go to the hospital anymore. Like, Ann Cusack ain't coming back. So no more doctors. She's just got these wounds, and like the way like the time jumps, the way this is paced, I feel it just skips a lot of vital necessary steps at times. She'll have a stigmata, and then she's back at her apartment and he's tending to her wounds. And no, you just had nails go through your feet. Like, you should be in the emergency room. What the fuck? How are you walking around in those Crocs? But yeah, I don't know. It's just it's starting to get a little messy, sloppy overall with how they're handling the story. I think you mentioned before reactions don't make sense here, but it really seems like there's very low stakes. When things do happen now, people just kind of are like, oh, she had stigmata again. Let's carry on. It's not even really a big matter to people. Donna stopped showing up. It's just not a thing,
Yeah, I don't think we see Donna again, do we? Or does she show up for a brief moment? I think this is the end of Donna. But he's in it now, because again, he's back at her apartment and he's still photographing the writing. Like, how many fucking pictures of this wall do you need, man? And he asks Frankie, look at this wall again and please let me know if you recognize anything. And she's like, I don't know what the hell it means. I just want my life back. It's the most emotion she's shown the entire film. The most worked up she's been the entire film. Good for you. You're finally getting it. You're finally getting fed up with what the fuck's going on. She storms out. She goes to a corner flower shop and is picking out some flowers, and he follows her and he apologizes, and they sit down, and this is when he reveals to her that he was an organic chemist, but he decided that he wanted to become a priest after realizing that you couldn't really find any concrete evidence, scientific evidence of how things came to be. And of course, this leads her to ask him, basically, don't you miss sex? And he's like, well, I do, but that doesn't mean it'll never happen again. Wink, wink. And they get real like giggly, and they're laughing, and we get kind of a silent little montage of them just laughing and having a good time and being flirty, when all of a sudden, out of fucking nowhere, that fucking hammer through the foot flashes onto the screen, and she literally falls out of her chair, crashes into some flowers. So not only is she causing 5-car pileup, now she's destroying property, and wounds appear on her feet, and she is he has to lift her sack of potato bodies out of this flower bed and take her home. Not to a hospital. He takes her home.
Whenever she finds herself at a unique new location, she's going to have stigmata. Like she's in this like market, there's flowers everywhere. She's wearing that very inspired red bandana, yellow fur-lined jacket ensemble. I'm guessing to cover the scars on her forehead. That makes sense, but it's a bold look.
Oh, yeah.
And then he shows up and they're sitting down, like falling in love. And I will say, I do like the scene. I think that it's another moment of calm where it's the camera isn't cutting all over the place and they're getting to develop some characterization. I think it's one of their more natural moments together. But yeah, I think overall that, now that we're getting into the final stages of Stigmata, it does like, I don't want to say it needs to raise the stakes. It's just, it is kind of the same thing. It looks great seeing a nail go through a person's foot. She's fallen all over. People are shocked. That waitress is shocked. But it's so sporadic that again you're kind of just getting glimpses of what's happening, and then she falls back Jesus style into all them flowers, destroying all those flowers, and it looks really good, but it's quick, and it does feel, you talked about rinse and repeat. Something new is happening every time, but it is the same approach. It almost feels like they kept the exact same edit and they just like replaced the clips with like, okay, now take out all the clips of the nail going through the hands and replace it with the whip going through the back. And like, it feels like they almost like cut it exactly the same and didn't try anything new with it. And so I enjoy the sequence, but it does start to feel a little bit tired when you know kind of what's coming every time, and it does give you exactly what you're anticipating. You get what I mean?
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah. It's definitely like when they do these scenes, when they're inserting images, it's a lot of it is the same stuff, the same images over and over and over again. So he's tending to her wound, and she now realizes she's had 4 stigmata. She asked him what the 5th one was. He tells her it's the spear. She's like, well, I'm going to die. And he says, no, don't worry. No stigmatic has ever received all 5 wounds. And he mentions like the first priest ever to receive stigmata and tells her that story. And then she ultimately asks him, well, how many wounds did he receive? And he says, oh, he lived to a very old age. And she's like, no, but how many wounds did he receive? 2. Only 2. She's on 4.
She's basically starting to become aware that this is something that could like potentially kill her. And like, again, like, I mean, she's like reacting, but like she's at like a 4 and I need her to be at like a 9. Like I need to be like, okay, holy shit, I just collapsed into a flower bed because nails went through my feet. I seem to be cool with it. Like, we're good. If she's not feeling pain, like she had mentioned earlier, that makes sense. But every once in a while, she's kind of wincing. So I'm guessing she's feeling something. But these are just open holes in her feet. I am not thinking she went to a hospital all this time. And how are these going to heal? How's she walking around? She's walking around in a little bit, is she not? She's moving around.
Oh, yeah.
So it doesn't make sense to me how this is addressed. I don't know. It's real loose. We're riding real fast and real loose now in Stigmata. And things aren't going to get any more coherent anytime soon.
No. Well, he leaves her alone and goes and uploads the photos of the wall to Brother Domenico. And he's able to interpret it, but he becomes really panicked and tells him, do not upload anymore. And he is just panic. And he starts deleting everything, trying to delete everything from the computer that Andrew sent him. Unfortunately, that nosy little queen up above sees this whole thing. So when Domenico leaves, this little fucker goes down and proceeds to recover everything that that he deleted and goes to show it to Cardinal Houseman.
What a fucking little cunt. This little bitch, he's such a prissy little bitch, and he's watching from above. It feels like Glee, the first episode of Glee, when the cheerleaders were looking down on everybody from up in the rafters, and it's just like it's very it, I guess it's meant to make it feel like somewhat intimidating, but this guy is just like a little cunt. And so he comes down and gets all this information back. That was easy peasy. Like, it wasn't too difficult for him to get that, and he takes it right to the cardinal, and the cardinal's like, we got to get this fucking shit addressed. So it's very clear what is being discovered here is a matter of importance. I do like where the story is going with how, again, the religious like figureheads, the leadership is handling this, wanting to cover this up. This is starting to delve into some area of interest for me, because it sounds very true to form. I buy it. I buy that the church is covering up a lot of shit that they don't want known, for the sake of maintaining power and keeping balance, within their leadership. So I feel like certain aspects of this are just kind of rushed through. I think this would be a bigger to do. But I don't know. I guess it's just for the sake of keeping the movie moving and the story moving, they kind of just put the pieces together, and pretty soon the priests are heading to Pittsburgh.
Yeah, well, yes. Domenico is able to call someone who is in Pittsburgh, this ominous long-haired man. I don't know what his name is, but he tells him that the missing Jesus Gospels have turned up. So Andrew goes back to Frankie's apartment, and he finds, he's looking, he's checking her wounds. He checks her forehead. When he goes to check her forehead, she tries to kiss his hand, and he pushes her away, and then he notices that she painted over the wall. He's like, well, why did you paint over the wall? And she said, because I'm sick of looking at it. And then she kisses him, and he kisses her back. And she tells him, oh, I really wish you weren't in that uniform right now. And he says, the uniform has nothing to do with this. And then all of a sudden, she turns into that fucking male demon and proceeds to beat the shit out of him. He's not very beat up. Like, I'm sorry, he would have broken bones. He would have at least open wounds. He is thrown through across the room. He's thrown through glass. He's thrown through the glass shower door. And ultimately, by the end of the whole thing, there's not like one scratch on him. There's this moment where she gets the knife and she's like holding it to him in that male voice. She's like, how's your faith, father? How's your faith these days? And you think that he thinks that she's going to stab him, but instead she starts slicing her own arm and then shoves the knife through her wound in her wrist. And then elaborate things blow across the room. She levitates and flips upright and is in the Jesus on the cross pose, staring at him as her eyes are pouring blood. And it's again, striking visual. He's able to lift her, get her down, and he puts her in bed and lays next to her. And when she wakes up and comes to, she's back to herself. She notices him praying, and she tells him, I've never seen you pray before. And he says, I haven't prayed in a long time. And then they lay next to each other for a long time. But again, this demonic, like now this superhuman demonic thing that possesses her is now violent. It has superhuman strength. It's launching a grown man across the room. This is like demonic possession movie 101, and in the middle of a movie that is called Stigmata.
I think one of the things that is not explored enough, but something that would give a little more explanation for the various manifestations of possession that we experience here is, I think, truthfully, for Frankie, being someone who's not a believer, she's extremely, when she is experiencing stigmata, she's extremely susceptible to demonic possession. I don't think we're always seeing the same demon. I don't think we're always seeing the same force that's taking hold of her. And so I think at different times it's, it comes to be the one priest who we learned passed away at the beginning of the film is using her as a vessel, but other demonic forces are coming through as well. And that's what's leading to the different stages of the stigmata occurring. It's a really interesting concept, but I'm having to grasp at straws to piece that together. And I just don't think it's clear. It makes for, the sequence makes for a really strong visual. Like at first, it seems kind of hokey. She's throwing them all around. You're absolutely right. He would be fucking beat the fuck up, like broken bones, getting thrown through shower glass. That tub has been beat up so many times, like, and then there's this really cool moment where she, when she cuts her wrist, it's quite violent. When she sticks the knife through her hand, it's quite shocking. You haven't been getting a lot of clear visuals like that thus far. Everything is really, really hectic the way it's cut. So now you're starting to get some really just kind of violent moments with her. And then she has this great moment where she levitates and then her feet sweep down beneath her and it takes on the form of Jesus on the cross. And this is one of my favorite shots in the film because the visual of her experiencing the bleeding, from her eyes, the tears of blood, I think is a really beautiful shot and looks truly striking. But then again, after this happens, she has cut her wrist violently. She needs to see medical assistance. She needs to go to an emergency room now. And I guess I feel like he just stitched her up and she's okay. Because right after this, they're laying in this bed together, and I'm like, no, girl just took a fucking kitchen knife to her wrist and cut him the fuck up. Both of you are really badly injured. Again, the stakes feel really low here because no matter what happens, nobody's reacting with any sense of urgency. Nobody seems to respond in a manner that seems like she's actually in danger.
Exactly. Even his whole reaction when this is happening is very, like, just muted. He doesn't try to fight back. He just lets this thing throw him around. And even when it throws him through glass, he looks unbothered, to be honest with you. If this was me and I was seeing this unfold before my eyes, I would be freaking out. I would be full of adrenaline. He is just not reacting at all. He doesn't look scared. He doesn't look bothered. He doesn't look beat up. Again, I can't get over the fact that this man has zero wounds, cuts, bruises after being launched across the room 5 times, launched through a glass shower door. He has nothing. Like, he's fine. In fact, he lays next to her. And then to top it off, guess who shows up?
This was quick.
How they got there?
This was too quick.
Vatican City to Pittsburgh seems like it would be a trek.
It seems like a fucking track, and it seems like it was just a matter of a couple hours had passed.
Yeah.
It does not make sense how they get there. When I told you that the time jumps here don't make sense, like it really, like, sometimes this movie moves really fast. Sometimes you can't tell if it's been a matter of hours or days. And so when these guys just fucking show up there after this really big moment, I'm guessing she had to have gone to the hospital again. But at this point, 5 ER visits in, they are admitting this woman. Like, you're not telling me that this girl who's all over the newspapers, they've pointed it out, they have fucking surveillance footage of her experiencing this. You're not telling me that at this point that they're just going to let her go back home and have some random priest take care of her. It just doesn't make sense. Like, who's not doing their job here?
Yeah. But he shows up and they walk right into her apartment and find him in bed with her. And they tell him, hey, we are here to help. We're going to take her to the archdiocese and help her. They whisk her away. And then they basically start interrogating Andrew about the writing on the wall, what he knows about what it says, why he painted over it. He says he doesn't know anything about it. It's irrelevant. Cardinal says, why would you send this then? If it's irrelevant, why would you send it to anybody but me? And they get into like a verbal spat, and the cardinal ends up sending him away, basically telling him, you know what? The only reason we wanted you for the priesthood is because you were a scientist, and we thought it could bring some objectivity to the to the to the church, but you have lost all objectivity. The last thing I expected to see was you in bed with her. So I need you to go and get some rest.
I do feel that, in the sense of acting, I feel that this is probably my favorite scene in the movie, because I do feel like Andrew finally stands the fuck up and speaks back to this demeaning piece of shit. The Cardinal makes me think of the villain, what's his name? Frollo from Hunchback of
Oh,
Notre
yeah.
Dame. like it's that kind of maniacal, like he's clearly up to no good. That's why he got there so quick, because as soon as he figured out that this is about to leak, basically, he's got to be there to put it out himself, and he does not have anyone's best interest in mind aside from himself and the church, the powers behind the church. And so they do paint him as a villain, but this whole, what's about to come from this, like, this moves really quick, and I've got issues across the board. I have issues. We've got this moment coming up at this church where Andrew's at this church, and the character of Marion, who is the gentleman with you mentioned earlier with long hair, who's introduced, is like yet another exposition tool. You got a series of freaking priests that you just run through, and each one is there just to move the story along a little bit further. Like Delmonico is now done, so he's no longer a topic. You're not going to hear anything further from him anymore. Now you got Marion because he's there, so he's the next tool that they're going to use to relay another important piece of information to Andrew, because every priest kind of bestows upon him another piece of important information. So he's there to basically disclose that he had worked alongside the two other priests to help decipher what is like the gospel of Jesus. And it's important information. It definitely is. I mean, this is kind of like what the story is coming down to. But because we just met this character, Marion, like maybe like a few minutes ago, and he really is of no importance to the story, and I know nothing about him up to this point, it makes this whole thing just feel very empty. If it would have been one of the other priests from prior who we've been kind of following up to this point and held a little bit more weight in the story, I guess maybe this development would have just had more impact. But because it's this guy and he's just kind of coming out of nowhere, showing up at this church, delivering some important exposition, and then now he's gone for the rest of the story. I don't know, fucking bring him with you. Bring him with you to the finale. Let him have a showdown with the Cardinal and tell him how it is. I don't know. Give this guy some purpose. His only purpose here is to relay another tidbit of exposition, and then he's just same thing as all the other priests. He's just gone. He doesn't do anything further, and it just feels like an unnecessary head count.
And it definitely slows the pacing down, because we're getting to the climax of the film, and now we have to sit through this, what amounts to, like you said, an exposition dump, basically telling us that this is so sacred. What she has revealed, what she has written, is so sacred because it's basically the most coveted uh, artifact of the Catholic Church. It's the original gospel of Jesus. This is the original. This was his own words to his disciples on the night of the Last Supper. And Kiernan is like, why is that so important? Because he says it could destroy the modern day church. And basically, Almeida, the dead priest from the beginning, got it, found it, and was going to translate it, and they weren't going to let him. They were going to destroy it. So he basically took it and went into hiding. And it is mentioned earlier. Remember, it is mentioned through dialogue that when Kiernan goes into the Cardinal's office for that first time, they tell him they have no record of a church in that little village. So it must not be one of their official ones, because they have no record of it. So he's in hiding. He has this thing, It's important because basically it's Jesus's original words, and it ultimately would make churches and priests meaningless, because the very first words of the document are, the kingdom of God is all around you, not in buildings, not in a piece of wood. In fact, if you split a piece of wood, I am there. Lift a stone, you will find me. We've heard those words before. So basically what he's telling us is, if this real version of Jesus's words got out there, churches would not exist. Priests would not exist. It literally is, each person would worship God in their own individual hearts. You wouldn't need buildings to represent him.
I fucking love this development. Like, for all of the slog and excess that we've gotten thus far, like, if this is what you're building towards, this is a great building block in a tool to create a fantastic story. It's a shame that everything around it is kind of mishandled, because truthfully, like, this is the message right here. I think this is so impactful, and this is really challenging the church and how the church operates and what it stands for and how it manipulates and everything it covers up. I think this is calling out a lot of things, and I wish that this is something that would have been explored earlier in the film. I wish that the character of Marion would have come in 20 minutes prior to this, and dumped this exposition then, and maybe let his character develop into something and give this whole thing a little bit more purpose. Because for this to come about in what is the last, like, 10 minutes of the movie, um it just feels, everything to come feels anticlimactic after this point. It is just so poorly handled, because really, like, this is what motivates Andrew to go off and head back to the church to find Frankie. And basically, now that he's had this realization, he's kind of a man on a mission. And Marion does not go with him. So Marion just shows up. He's in Pittsburgh, shows up, gives him the information, and now this is just one more character who's, like, lost to the shadows. And so Andrew takes off and basically is going to prevent what is an exorcism. And it's really, like, thrown into the mix out of nowhere, and it moves quick. Like, they start hosting an exorcism, and within seconds, like, he is, like, writhing and speaking in tongues and all this shit. And it just, this whole act here, it just feels like it should have been such a bigger part of the movie. I don't know, like, doesn't this feel like all of a sudden you're in the middle of this exorcism and then you're like, whoa, wait a minute, this is the finale? What the fuck? Like, this does not feel like a fully finalized concept. This all feels very half-baked to me.
Oh yeah, we get a full-fledged Exorcist 1974 Exorcist scene that goes awry real quick, because once she starts talking to him in his demonic voice and tells him that he is an enemy of the church, he gets everyone out of there. He kicks everyone out, and then he begins to strangle her, telling her that he will not destroy his church. Now, keep in mind, he does not want this Jesus gospel to get out, because if it does, it's going to make him meaningless. It's going to make the whole lavish Catholic Church in Vatican City meaningless, because that's not what God is. That's not what Jesus wanted, So he starts choking her. And in the meantime, the dude in the church has told Kiernan that the Catholic Church is never going to let that information get out. So he has gotten into his car and rushes back to the house. And Jesus Christ, Cardinal is choking her very hard. She is almost on the brink of death. And luckily, Andrew gets there just in time. He pushes past everyone, goes into that room, sees what's going down, grabs Cardinal, throws him off of her. She's gasping for air. She's still alive. He violently, like, grabs the Cardinal, slams him against the wall, tells him, I know everything. And Cardinal's like, you're not going to do anything. You're going to be an enemy of this church. And Andrew's like, no, you haven't mistaken. You have spent your last days in this church. I'm going to reveal everything. And so basically Cardinal has to go away with his tail between his legs, and Andrew goes back into the room, and I mean, it immediately starts on fire. Like the whole room starts on fire. The fire flies out of the fireplace, catches the room on fire. She's sitting on the bed. He tells Almeida, "Let me be your messenger. I'm the one with the faith." And all of a sudden, he's able to like walk through flames, cooing the words of the Jesus gospel at him. And he starts performing his own little version of an exorcist as we're getting more images of the stigmata, doves flying at the camera. And he's able to walk over to her, pick her up, and carry her out of this room that's in flames.
This is all very quick. All of it. From the exorcism moving forward. I mean, the exorcism, like, if you're going to make this an exorcism film, if that's going to be the angle you're going to lean into, go all in. Go all in. But really, like, she just starts yelling at him in Italian. He's like, "Get the fuck out of here." And then the nuns run away, and then he starts choking her. And you're like, whoa, that's a development. And I really feel like, I mean, there's something wonderful about watching two priests fight each other, but I really feel like this houseman needed some proper comeuppance. He gets thrown around a little bit, like thrown up against walls and threatened, and basically everything's going to be outed. And that simp Dario's standing over there looking all awkward and uncomfortable with his big doe eyes, looking like, "Oh God, we've been outed," and then like, and that's it. Then Andrew walks into the room and catches on fire. I needed Houseman to, like, I don't know, be possessed by the demon, levitate, and blow up or something. Give me something. This movie's been really light on. I mean, there's no deaths. To be clear, there's no deaths. So just give me something. But this guy, just like, you're right, he has to walk away with his tail between his legs, and that feels just like really unsatisfying. This guy's been pretty shitty from the get-go, and this is just a film that, like, if you want to see people like get their just desserts, just know it ain't happening at all. And so then he walks in that room and you get all that fire, and it's digital, but for the era it looks okay. It really doesn't look awful, but it's not great, and there's fire everywhere. And I get the message at play here. The whole time when she's been possessed, basically in different forms, it's been challenging his faith. He is a character who definitely doubts. And this is finally the moment where he's like, "I'm going to prove I have faith." And he walks through the fire. He walks through the fire in order to save her. And that's his proof to the priest that he is the right one to carry on this message, because he truly does have faith. There's something to that. There's weight to that. But it feels really empty, because I just feel like this film has been kind of all over the place. Its focus has not been maintained. And so when you finally have this moment of what is like importance for this character specifically, this seems like a significant moment. This choice here, this decision that he's making to carry on the word of this gospel, it feels kind of empty. I don't know. So I really love the ideas at play here. I really do. But this ending should have been so much more of a thing. Like, it should have just hit so much harder than it does. And it feels like it kind of just sputters out and dies.
That's why I said it's very generic. Like, this is a very generic possession film scene. I mean, this is something right out of a direct to DVD, you know, early 2000s possession movie. This is the exact scene you'd get. They're like, "Oh, we've seen The Exorcist, so we have to try to replicate something from that," but it just doesn't fit for this movie. And ultimately, there just feels like there's no satisfying ending. Like, yeah, we don't see what happens to the cardinal. Like you said, we don't know. Nothing happens to him that we're aware of. So all it took was for Kieran to tell the possessed version of Frankie that he's the messenger now. Okay, that ended it. And he carries her outside, and they sit on she's in his lap and everything, and like when she wakes up, they kiss, And this is what I'm saying. I think at this moment he is like, I'm giving up the church for this broad. I want some of that. Church has done me bad. I'm gonna live my life with this girl half my age. Because they're in love now, Roger.
I don't fucking buy it. I also don't buy that she's now scar free. She looks great. She's up prancing around, happy as a clam. Doves are flying down and landing on her. And it's very hopeful. And that's the note it ends on for her. And I'm like, okay, well, for having followed her a majority of the film, I mean, even though I would say he's the focus, he is the starting and conclusionary note here, I really feel like Frankie got done a little dirty. I'm happy that she has found peace with what she just experienced, but I should know what's to come from this. Is she going to become a devout Catholic? What is her life moving forward? Does anyone ever acknowledge that this is all because of that rosary? They kept cutting to the rosary, but did anyone ever identify that and say, burn this thing? I don't know. Or return this to the casket from which it came. Pay your respects. Something like that. It feels like her story is, they're like, that's wrapped up. So like moving on, like, no, she's like the major focus of the movie. Like, I just feel that I should kind of get a epilogue for her, a closing note, something to wrap it up. But instead, we get this moment where he goes back to Brazil, and like, I appreciate the moment for what it is. I think seeing him go back and find the statue again, and beside the statue, there's an area where he notices that something had been buried under the floorboard. He pulls it up, and it's the scrolls. It is the gospel of Jesus. It is a physical thing, and he now has it in his possession. A good note to end on, an important note to end on. But I really do feel like we should have just gotten some more closure for her character and the other individuals in her life that existed, like Donna, perhaps. I don't know.
Yeah, we don't know what happened to her. Yeah, so the film ends with Kiernan finding the Jesus gospel, and we get words on a screen that end the film that say in 1945 a scroll was discovered which is described as the secret sayings of the living Jesus. The scroll, the Gospel of St. Thomas, has been claimed by scholars around the world to be the closest record we have of the words of Jesus. The Vatican refuses to recognize the gospel and has described it as heresy. The end. I'm like, okay.
Okay.
I mean,
good on
what
you,
does it have to do with the
Stigmata,
rest of the film, though?
for calling out the Catholic Church, I guess. I mean, like, it's saying basically that this is, I guess, inspired by the fact that the church is hiding things. Like, this whole movie, I guess, was to call that out. I'm cool with that. That's cool. I wish it would have been more of a thing, or more of a focus. I mean, like, ended on that note. I'm fine with that, but it just kind of feels just like tacked on there. I'm like, wow, you got a message here that I wasn't really anticipating, but cool. I'm cool with it. It just kind of unexpected.
Yeah, unexpected. And again, I don't know. The film just feels so disjointed. And yeah, I mean, we're supposed to buy that the rosary was the catalyst for everything happening, but it's never, ever, 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 ever acknowledged. It's never expanded on. I don't know. I mean, the movie looks good. There's some good imagery, but that's about it. I go back to that Shakespeare quote I said at the beginning of the episode, and I think that applies heavily to this film. Ultimately, I don't think it really has a strong message, which is surprising considering it is a religious themed horror film called Stigmata.
I think it's that the religious themed horror films that work the best are films that are like rooted in emotion. Like, when you think of religion and how it impacts people, a lot of people, this defines them. This is their everything is poured into their religion and what they believe in their faith, and that drives them. And I think that when you think of classic examples, a la The Exorcist, films that are remembered and celebrated, it's not just the moments that are shocking or the religious imagery that you're seeing that is shocking. It's also the emotional bonds and the intense faith that people are experiencing to get them through that. And here, when we said the stakes are not very high, the emotional stakes are not high. People here seem to be kind of on autopilot. And I just don't buy that with a religious horror film. If you're going to push that and you're going to make something that is rooted in faith, you need to capture the intensity that comes with that and the deep devotion and passion that comes with that. And this film, while it's very stylistic and it's edited to look like a music video from that era, it doesn't have those very important, impassioned, emotional through stories that I think a film like this would require in order to truly have impact. And so I'm disappointed it feels so flat. And this is a film that, coming back and watching this again after a long time, it definitely did not um, uh, hold me in the palm of its hand.
Yeah.
if I could say, it did not have me as transfixed, and I can certainly see for myself now why I felt passionately about this upon watching it the first time when I did. I was young and I was very influenced by my beliefs, and I believed these things. When I saw these things happening in this film, I was like, this is something that happens. This is something that's real. This is I remember believing that, and now looking back on that, um, I clearly think differently. And so for me, that fear, that natural paranoia I have that things like that exist, that demonic forces exist, things along those lines. Without that, this film doesn't pack much of a punch. But it was a great trip down memory lane. I will say that. And lots of nostalgia. It took me back to a certain era. That wardrobe. God, I need to get me some of that wardrobe she's wearing. I'm going to be betting on it. I'm making a bid on that one wardrobe. It's a size 2 to 4. I don't think I can fit into that dress, but I'm going to butter my thighs and try to slip in it. We'll see. Maybe I'll wear it to Houston Horror 2025. I show up in the Stigmata costume, the club scene Stigmata costume. Oh boy. But yeah, no. Thank you for giving me a chance to watch it. I know this is a little bit drier than the previous titles we've covered, but I felt like if we're going to cover something with some religious or, I want to say emotional heft, but this film's pretty bleh. I felt like this was the time. So I don't know what you have lined up after this. Hopefully, it's something that's a little more oomph than fucking Stigmata. What do you got lined up for me, Troy? Jesus Christ.
Stigmata was an interesting watch for me. I can definitely see, if you were a devout Catholic, the film having maybe a little bit more of an impact. But ultimately, like I said, very, very, very flat film. As far as what I have lined up next, boy, oh boy, oh boy. I have my list here in front of me, and I think that with Stigmata dealing with such a heavy topic, albeit in a very not so heavy way, I want to get back to, at least next week, get back to something that allows our brains a little bit of a break. And I know one of your favorite things, Roger, are movies that are Halloween ripoffs.
How'd you know that, Troy? Wow, look, you know me so well.
Because I just
golly.
know. There's this little regional horror film from the 80s that I saw as a kid. The VHS box art sat on the shelf, stared at me for a long time before I rented it. And it was a striking image of just a man holding out a bloody box with a bow on it. And I finally rented it thinking that it was going to be this grand experience. And it's something. And it's something I need to finally share with you. And it is the 1987 very regional horror film, slasher film. Where I have a feeling this is going to be the summer of slasher films for me. It's called Offerings. Have you heard of Offerings?
Yes.
I guarantee
I have.
If you see the box art, you're going to recognize it. And in fact, the movie The Gift with Jason Bateman, and the other actor. The Gift. There's a movie that came out 10 years ago, maybe, with Jason Bateman called The Gift. Rebecca Hall, I believe, Jason Bateman. They definitely were inspired by the cover of Offerings. It's virtually the same cover. I haven't seen Offerings forever, and I was reminded of it looking through like old texts with a friend of mine that I haven't talked to for a while. I was like, oh, what this person up to? Because we used to like quote a couple of the lines from Offerings, and that's what brought it back to my memory. I know, diehard 80 horror fans are going to have seen it. It's definitely very Halloween inspired, but it also has like its own unique charm that I can't wait for you to experience. So it's Offerings, folks. Have you seen Offerings? If not, give it a watch before next week. It's on YouTube. Hint, hint. It was on Tubi for a long, long time, but it seems like they took it down. But there's a full version of it up on YouTube.
Yeah, I have never watched this film. I can absolutely say that. So this will be a brand new experience, which we love. I know that we like going in blind.
Yeah, no, I think you'll have a lot of fun with it. It's something. I think it's something you got to experience. If we're gonna make a trek through 80s slashers, why not do them all, even the ones that might not be so well known.
I mean, that's what we're here for, the rare, the obscure. And Troy, I love it when you throw a random curveball at me, so I'm catching it. I can't wait to watch this one.
Yeah, guys. So let us know, your thoughts on Stigmata as a horror fan. How would you rate it as a religious horror experience? And then B, are you excited for Offerings? I know I am.
What a generous offering, Troy. Thank you.
But with that, guys, thank you for tuning in, and we will be back next week.
Good night.